Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year to you all.
He just is
I'd like
funny,
to
man.
announce the return date for myself, the notorious Conor McGregor.
Conor's back, isn't he? Or is he? We'll find out.
The greatest comeback of all time.
We should all rate ourselves just half as much as this man does.
Will take place in Las Vegas for International Fight Week on June the 29th.
He's literally picking stuff out of his teeth with his tongue as he's giving this announcement. And still looking pretty cool while doing it. I don't even necessarily like this guy. I don't dislike him. You know, he's said things about me. I don't really give a shit. He's funny, I'll give him that. Not as funny as he used to be. Let's not forget. KSI, you couldn't box eggs if you worked in a bleeding egg boxing factory. Not his best work, but this is a bit funnier.
Come a little closer. And the opponent, Michael Chandler. And the weight, Mr. Chandler, 185 pounds.
This guy. This is the good Conor, to be fair. The one who was actually funny back in the day. It's a bit more like the old Conor. So is he telling the truth or is he talking absolute bollocks? Well, if it was true, Dana White would probably be the one making the announcement. They'd probably be posted. It would be a big announcement from the UFC officially, not McGregor picking, food out of his teeth while swilling a wine glass round. So obviously this is probably bullshit. But maybe there's some truth in it. Maybe he's trying to push the UFC towards that day. June 29th, for a start, is miles away. 185 pounds is not a weight class I think he can even get to. Like, his body he's a small guy. McGregor at his heaviest is about 170. And even then, I think he didn't even come in at 170 when he fought at 170. It was like a little bit less than that from memory. For McGregor to make 185 pounds, he'd have to stop running entirely and stop training and just eat Big Macs. It doesn't seem realistic at all. But maybe this is what he wants. Maybe he's trying to push the UFC into giving him this fight date because he's not going to get UFC 300. It looks like the main event of 300 has to be a title fight. Well, McGregor isn't a title holder and neither is Chandler. So to have them ahead of title holders is unheard of. It's always a title holder that's the main event. That's the way Dana White does it, out of respect for the belt. He's looking at the next possible date thinking, all right, International Fight Week is the next big moment of the UFC and I want to be the guy to hold that. McGregor's best weight is 155 pounds. If he doesn't fight at that, for me, it's a question of how seriously is he taking this. And look, I know McGregor's bulked up since his leg injury. Clearly, he was on some form of steroid to help heal the leg, and which has obviously had, an impact on the rest of his body. And he's looking a bit fuller, a bit thicker, but realistically, a little bit. I don't know if McGregor's ever been 185 pounds, even on steroids. But maybe the reason for that would be he is a bigger man than Michael Chandler. Chandler has got a very small frame for 155, which is where he normally fights. He could easily fight at 145, even though he's a very muscular guy. He's bloated for that weight class. He's at a massive disadvantage in terms of height, reach, all of that. He's at a disadvantage against everyone, especially a McGregor. So McGregor might be thinking, because I've got the bigger frame, if I pack that muscle on, Chandler is going to struggle to match me in terms of the size and strength, and I'm going to have a massive advantage over him. Chandler carrying 185, I mean, he is going to be slow, sluggish, and not as able to carry that weight as McGregor can. If McGregor's then packing that muscle on, he's thinking, when I hit you, you are going to fucking feel it. So he's stacking the cards in his favour if that's the case. But if you're truly confident in your own ability, which McGregor always has been, why are you worrying about attributes? McGregor was always the guy who didn't need to worry about attributes because he had the skills. Remember when he used to talk about, Nate Diaz and how hard he struggled with him, he was like, it's just because he's the bigger man. He's got size, attributes. It's the only way any of these guys can give me problems because I'm the most skillful guy. Now he's worrying about attributes potentially. And if any of this is true about the 185 thing, it would make me wonder, how confident are you? Since 2016 when he won the title, he's had 4 fights and lost 3. That was 7 years ago. It's a long time. And we've seen how ring rust, inactivity can affect the fighter, let alone weight gain, let alone defeats in the psychological sense, let alone a mega injury that most fighters would never come back from. Maybe he's not as confident as he used to be, despite the, cocky attitude he's showing in this video. And I think deep down, he is going to be second-guessing himself, no doubt about it. When I look at this fight, Michael Chandler is tailor-made for Conor McGregor to look good, which is why they've chosen him. Chandler is short, he's got shorter arms, he's a brawler, He's going to come forward. And the old McGregor, the prime McGregor, would have let him walk straight onto that left hand. It would have been the perfect style to make McGregor look great, which is why we know when we watch this fight, if McGregor does struggle, this is the perfect style for you to fight. So if you're struggling with him, then who the fuck can you beat in the top 10, really? You know, there's maybe one or two fights after that left. What, Nate Diaz, Paddy Pimblett would be an entertaining back and forth. Give Paddy the last big push before McGregor goes off into the sunset. Maybe does some bullshit boxing matches. The thing I'm finding interesting is the fact that the UFC have stalled on McGregor's return. He clearly wanted to be back well before UFC 300, let alone in the summer. And I feel like it's down to somewhat the UFC business model has changed so much since McGregor became a pay-per-view megastar, because it was all about pay-per-view back in the day. McGregor, when he was at his absolute maximum in terms of fame, in terms of his performances, that was when the UFC was sold. And around that time was when they made TV network deals, which meant that they were guaranteed money now. It wasn't about the stars on a pay-per-view card that were bringing in the money. They had guaranteed cash coming in, which then put the power in the hands more so than ever of Dana White, because he wasn't relying on pay-per-view stars to make money anymore. And if anything, those pay-per-view stars were the ones who were giving him the biggest headache, because they knew they had power over him. Now, pouring cold water on those stars and holding those stars down is actually the goal for Dana, because then it's more about the strength of the brand, and the power is more in his hands than the fighter's hands. So for someone like Conor, I'm not saying that they want rid of Conor, but they don't want Conor to be an example to other UFC stars of this is how you break out of the UFC mold and become bigger than the company. They want the company to always be number one in the eyes of everyone. And maybe they just don't want Conor to have the same level of power that he once had. And I know potentially they're probably negotiating contracts as well. And you look at some of the recent deals that have happened in the MMA scene, Francis Ngannou signing with the PFL, Saudi funded, so you know that's a big money move. Jake Paul also signing with the PFL. They are making deals with guaranteed cash, from what I understand. It's not based around pay-per-view sales. They're going there with guaranteed money, which is very unlike what the UFC are offering. You'll obviously get your base salary, but you'll have pay-per-view points if you're of the level of a Conor McGregor. If Conor McGregor was to sign with the PFL, for example, which I don't think could happen because he's still under contract, but let's say it could happen, the amount of money he would be offered, it would probably be 10 times what the UFC would offer him. So there's probably some negotiations going on right now, which is why this is stalling. But I think there's a level of delusion in McGregor, and I'm not saying this to have a go at him. Like, you know, I just think that, like, he wants all the fame and adulation, and he craves attention like a drug, ironically. And he keeps turning up to all of these boxing events and putting his face out there because he wants to stay in the public eye. And it's a very clever move so that people don't forget you and are still interested when you fight. But people now don't even look at Conor like a fighter anymore. They look at him more like kind of the way Cristiano Ronaldo's looked at. You know, he kind of used to be, you know, a high-level footballer playing for the best teams in the world, but now he's off in Saudi just making his money. And he's like more than a footballer now. He's just an icon of the sport. And I think McGregor's now crossing over into that. And I think if this fight does go badly for him, rather than to continue to damage his reputation by taking more brutality in the cage and losing in worse and worse ways the more he fights, which is probably how it would go if he can't quite get back to a level that can compete at the highest level because of this leg break, he should just hang them up. Like this talk of fighting Manny Pacquiao and all of that. I mean, Manny Pacquiao would light him up like a Christmas tree. He would not be able to keep up with Manny, in my opinion. Manny would do serious damage to him. You know, this is a man who has not looked after himself in the way, you know, high-level fighters should. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, they are 24/7, 365. They aren't turning up to events looking the way he looks. We've all seen it. I'm interested to see how he looks when he comes back, and I think it is great for the fight game. But for him, himself, his family, his own personal brand, if it doesn't go well, I'd sack it off there. Look after your beer company, your whiskey company and all of that, and ride off into the sunset. But I don't know if he and his ego can let it go. Like, let's say he goes in there and gets beat the fuck up by Michael Chandler, which I still think he should beat Michael Chandler. I think it's a perfect style for him. But I don't know what he looks like these days with that leg break. And if it does go badly, I think he'll keep fighting regardless, because I think he just is addicted to the adulation and being the man in the arena. And the likelihood is if it does go bad, it'll go worse the next time, and then worse the time after that. And we'll have a bit of a Tony Ferguson scenario where someone who was the Mac and the champion, and even without belts, he still carries himself like the champion. That'll be removed and taken away, and it'll change the way people say him. And that's why, if it doesn't go well against Chandler, he should just hang up the gloves. But let me know what you lot think in the comments. Maybe I'm wrong, and let us know what you think of the fight in general. Do you think that if it is a 185 fight, McGregor is doing that solely to gain what is an unfair advantage on a much smaller guy than him? Or do you think he's talking absolute bollocks and just trying to keep interest in what is a very deteriorating fight career? Personally, for all the people who think I hate McGregor, I'd like to see him go in there and win and shock the world and come back in style and make the game entertaining again, because without him, I can't lie, it's nowhere near as fun. The fight game is at its best when Anthony Joshua, Conor McGregor, Tyson Fury, all these people are at their best. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, stay subscribed to the Pain Game YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.